Okay guys, today I'm completely winging it. I'm going to be talking today about NE and NI as the dominant functions, and then sort of I'm going to get into like ENTP misunderstandings when it comes to our NE. But first I'd like to start off by talking about NI, the dominant function, mainly within INFJ. And yeah, so let's get into it. So I hear a lot of times when it comes to talk about INFJs, whenever they're talking about NI, first of all, don't hate me if I ended up tell you something that maybe it's not like something you want to hear, but because I love you guys, I love INFJs. But anyway, a lot of times INFJs will mention their NI and their sort of big picture concept, how NI focuses on the big picture, and sort of like I don't really know what they consider NE to be, but I just want to sort of separate the two and try to get to the point to understand what it exactly is. Because NI, although yes, NE and NI are both big picture things, but there's a misunderstanding of as of what NI is. So allow me to explain. Pretty much whenever you have NI, what's going on is that you're collecting all these abstract patterns, and when you're doing that, you're not collecting it from the outside world, you're collecting that from the inside world, you're collecting that from within yourself and how you sort of operate as well as others. So you're collecting information on how you operate and others operate, and this allows you to understand those complex patterns in order to make a big picture interpretation of how these patterns match up within these people. And so NI, the reason that you guys have so much trouble, conflict with dealing with finding the meaning of that subjective experience and comparing it to the objective is because that's something within. You're very much, your function is primarily looking at the big picture of how the internal human being pretty much operates. And then so you dive deeper and deeper into that topic, and then that's your specific field and that's your specific category. And then so you have a really great understanding when it comes to understanding how people operate on that level and knowing the patterns of different people. And so you guys try to find some meaning out of that all, and then you go into what was referred to by another YouTuber as NITI loop, to where you guys will constantly try to seek meaning, and you'll try to figure more out. But going through NI, it can only experience the NI, the internal world, really. And so now I'm going to talk to you about the NE and how NETI and NITI loops actually both have loops, and what the difference is between them. And so I'm an ENTP. I've also experienced a similar loop of trying to figure things out, right? Whenever there's turmoil in my life or something bad happened, I try to figure things out. The difference between whenever I had to do this and whenever INFJ had to go through this is why I really feel bad for them, is because they don't have the extroverted function in order to look for something that they're trying to obtain, right? That sort of outside source that they're trying to obtain. Now for me being ENTP, I had extroverted intuition. So my focus is also big picture. We do focus on the big picture, but we don't focus, it pertains to more of like the physical world around us and physical systems in which we are patterns, concepts on the outside. And so whenever we're looking for those type of answers, if we're under any circumstance where we're pressured to find that because of any turmoil we're dealing with, we can get out of the loop. And so I would say that there's a misunderstanding of the NE function as maybe some just it's focused on the idea that it's completely ideas, like it's just 100% NE is ideas. That's not the case. There's a reason that ENTPs are called innovators. I don't really think that it's more so that I don't think it's that we're creating new things. It's that we're recognizing patterns within reality and the outside reality. And then so we're able to lock on to something that exactly hasn't been figured out yet. And then this is why there's a misunderstanding that ENTPs are just like, they frolic upon like different ideas that are like the craziest things ever, or that we make up patterns, or that we like connect things that don't really go together. That's not the case. The thing is that we look at connections that are already there, and it's not really something that we consciously do. It's more, it's intuition. So whenever we're in a situation, in actuality, in the world, in the actual world, we notice patterns and they get put together. And then so we don't just do nothing with that information. We don't just gather it and simply that, because we also have TI. So we do build a logical framework of how these things operate and why they do the things that they do. So yeah, there's this sort of, I want to say this because I feel that not only would this help INFJs, but also it would also help ENTPs, because I feel like there's not enough people saying like the true nature of an ENTP. Like that we just sort of talk about like NE as like, oh, it's like a, ENTPs are talked about as like class clowns kind of, really, but it's deeper than that. And I feel like we're being sort of like shunned on our true potential, because there's even a theme about it, right? If you look deep into I know people say not to type like fictional characters, but if you look into characters like Deadpool, like Rick Sanchez, things like that, you'll notice that a lot of times what they're really doing, like you'll notice that those types of characters, they often like will break the fourth wall in the shows that they're in, and that's sort of like a representation. To me, I see that as a true representation of what I thought ENTPs actually see the world, because we are all different. We all have these different important roles, right? And I don't want to take away from the fact that INFJs have this, they have a great ability and they're really good at understanding people. But then they also have to realize that they're looking for something that's inside of their head, and that's not actually where you find the answers that they're looking for. You don't, because what that purpose is of you looking inside of your head, that's to understand other people and how they're dealing with what they're dealing with, and understanding the people inside of their heads. That's why they're good at counseling, or even speaking and understanding the emotions of people and the nature of people. They're experts of people, but people is not the entirety of, let's say, like the universe, or the meaning of the universe. It's not. In order to look at that, it cannot be looked at as your subjective, your subjective patterns. It has to do with objective patterns. That even shows in the fact that ENFJ or ENTPs and INFJs, they're almost like inside out versions of one another. Like INFJ is the flip side, where they're looking in, and then ENTP is looking out. And when we're doing so, depending on the ENTP, you can actually you can actually build upon your framework of knowledge more so than ENTPs have a history, or sort of like there's a commonality to it, to where ENTPs really just like wing it. They live in the moment. We really don't try to build up our framework as much as we could, but under certain pressures, ENTPs can actually figure things out that are not yet we recognize pattern. If you could recognize a pattern